Ted Lasso. So I got a chance to see that series, and when I watched that series, I just said, yes, that's who I am. And I haven't really ever seen anything like that. I mean, I remember Mr. Holland's Opus and the Dead Poets Society, movies about teachers, really fine teachers. And I've seen The Replacements. That was kind of a fun movie, bringing in a bunch of replacements during a strike for a football team, American football team. And they're good. But there's something about Ted Lasso that just really gave me a feeling of belief. It really was. Zeal. You know, when you're playing sports, you have a lot of zeal for that sport. Now, the definition of zeal is the zeal for loving God, the creative God, the God within as well, as far as I'm concerned. You are the creator as well of your life. So if you have a zeal for your life, that's a reflection of the Creator, isn't it? Now, how do we keep the zeal and enthusiasm? You were watching the video of the Ted Lasso and how this team were feeling bad about themselves. Can only be one winner. Only one team can win, and one team loses. In the Bomber game last night, I don't think there would have been a lot of excitement in the Alouette dressing room. How discouraging is that? You get this level of, serotonin or adrenaline or all these endorphins that happen when a team wins and everybody gets so excited. But what happens when you lose? How does that make you feel? Handling the darkness. Let's take this on a global scale. Wars. Wars. How dark is this world right now? We have people all over Europe and the Middle East killing other people every single day. Hundreds, thousands. World War II, millions of people killed because one side wanted to be better than the other side. Makes you wonder. Sometimes I look at sport as almost like a mini war it's all very acceptable. We can have, Winnipeg's better because Montreal lost. We're better. Nobody's life was lost. But it's almost like a replacement for war. Sometimes you watch the Olympics and you got countries competing against other countries, and who wins the most gold medals is the better country. Interesting. What brings us down? What brings us down? When we have our zeal and our enthusiasm, I know it's criticism. Criticism and judgment is the first thing that brings me down. I remember doing a play once, and a critic from one of the papers came out and gave us a review, and it hurt. It hurt me big time because I was mentioned, and it was kind of weird. The review, I don't want to get into it in detail, but some of the things that I was being criticized for was things that the director told me to do, like don't do an English accent. Meanwhile, others in the cast were kind of doing English accents, so the critic decided that I didn't do an English accent. And I'll tell you, I could do an English accent if you wanted it. I was playing a role that nobody ever wanted to play back in George Bernard Shaw's time. The Reverend Morel was not a popular character for actors to play. But that judgment hurt me. It's kind of like, I don't even want to act anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. This week I went through a low because I was feeling judged and criticized with some of the rhythms I was doing on the cajon for this little group I got going for Halloween this Thursday. And it hurt. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I made that cajon and I really just wanted to play it. But I've contacted Henry, and Henry's going to come out to rehearsal on Tuesday, and he's going to do the percussion, so I don't have to deal with that. I can have some more fun singing it without having to worry about the percussion anyway. It's hard to play percussion and sing, they say. So okay, I'll accept that. Sometimes lack of appreciation brings us down. We're our worst critics, though. You know, when we don't feel like we're being appreciated in whatever we do, especially creative things, it just affects us. It just hurts us. I even remember as a kid, I had a little drum kit, and I was so proud of it, and I took it out in the front yard, and I was playing it, and some kid from the street was there and says, "Oh, you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong." I was like 4 years old. And that just sticks with you. Many of you have had similar experiences in your life, right? We do have to let them go, but they do stay with us. You know, we've talked about near-death experiences from time to time, and many people with near-death experiences have what's called the life review. Within a short time, you get to see all your life and the things that you've done. You also apparently hear all the things that you've said and how it affected that person. Whoa. We have to be careful with the thoughts. We have to be careful with our words. How much are we changing? Like, we are an awakened group of people because we have tools in unity that aren't as common over the years. Some people drown the pain through alcohol and drugs and those kinds of things. Many of them have been criticized in their lives. I don't know why people turn to drugs, but it lifts them a little bit because they're low. The people on the street that we drive by all the time that are asking for that little bit of money, what happened in their life that caused them to have the mental illness that they have today? Have they made mistakes that weren't forgiven? Can they simply not get jobs because they now have a criminal record? Or this happened or that happened, or problem happened at this work and they got fired from this job and they can't get another job? I don't know. Is it some little thing that was said to them once that changed the feeling that they have about themselves? How do people get that low to either be on the streets or turn to drugs and alcohol, or both? We do have tools. In the last number of years, people have explored other types of modalities in spirituality, including things like Reiki, accessing consciousness in different ways, realizing, knowing that God is there and willing to help. But a lot of time we have to ask for it. We have to be open to it. We have to be ready to, because a lot of time our ego takes over and just expects we're going to fix things ourselves. We don't even need God for this, that, the other thing. But the love of having each other is also extremely important. Having each other, and this group at Unity here, to me, has been a fantastic support over these years. And I thank you for all of that. We all work through heavy stuff. I don't really know about each and every one of your lives, but I've heard little bits here and there, and we all have worked through heavy stuff. Some people would have amazing testimonies. Ovid has an amazing testimony. We all have to work through things all the way through our lives. Now, I think of us at Unity here as being a bit awakened, okay? That being awake to the fact that God does exist and is creating our lives. This stuff that goes on in our lives needs to be accepted. We simply have to accept it as what it is. I love the phrase, it is what it is. Something in that stuff is helping us learn a little bit about ourselves. Sometimes we just have to embrace, and I'm using the word stuff to replace another S word when it hits the fan. The stuff. Sometimes we just have to embrace it. We've had our own personal losses. We've had losses of people in our lives. And that stuff affects us. When my mother and sister passed away in 2006, I know it affected me for a good 5 years before I discovered that there was more to God than I realized. I was angry at God. And I lost a lot of my faith because of it. But, having said that, it allowed me to grow in a very, very different way, and which led me to Unity. For many people, similar stories, right? Similar stories. So we process it, and then ultimately we can release it. It's not easy. One of the things that is fantastic for helping getting out of that darkness is to just go have some fun. You know, when try to go out and find something that is fun. And I found this last week ended up being a lot of fun. I was low on Tuesday because of the criticism of my, and then Wednesday is kind of, and even Thursday I think I wasn't feeling so good. But Friday came along and we got a chance to go to a memorial. That's a lot of fun, right? A good friend of mine passed away in May. Sorry, I knew I'd get it wrong. He passed away in February. And we had a chance to go to his memorial on the anniversary of his birthday. And it was at a place called XQ's on Sargent Avenue where I put on, a couple shows there. And really didn't know what to expect. But I'll tell you, it was a fantastic party. I have never had so much fun at a memorial. He had a connection. He's operated Bankwalk Sound in Winnipeg, and he was a sound man for many, many bands in the city. And he's also managed some bands. And there was a group he managed back in the early 80s when Carl and I were dating. And the name of the group was Sally Screw and the Drivers. And they were kind of like a B-52s. They were a new wave group, and they were, highly energetic and bouncing around. And they finished off the night. I mean, they're in their 60s. And they got together especially for this command performance. Did 3 songs in memory of Henry. And it was so much fun watching these 60-year-olds bouncing around like 18-year-olds and just having the time of their life. And they played well. But that Henry has touched people in Winnipeg over the years with just reinforcing sound, but also reinforcing belief in themselves. Many people Henry worked with went on to great things. They spoke of all the greatness, and his love for his family and his child surmounted all of that, and she is a beautiful vocalist and performer herself now. Those little things. You know, it could have been really easy to criticize my daughter Heather when she was 3 years old, when she was exploring her singing voice. She used to sing little songs, and sometimes it went down below her range, and it was a little growl down there. You know, it was pretty funny. But we never ever criticized her and her voice, and Carla made sure that nobody did. And I'll tell you, she grew with her singing and her musical life, and her energy and enthusiasm is paramount. Right, Paul? And so that's really what life is all about. You know, don't just build people up if you can. Even if you don't love it, be appreciative of the efforts, the time, what people put in, and then you'll get more. I know sometimes I do have some regrets in my life, a little bit of a regret. I felt not appreciated and criticized a little bit when I was teaching drama at River East Collegiate. And I left. And went back to teaching elementary school. And I needed about a year just to kind of sort myself out. But then I got back into it and started discovering the talent at the elementary level. And I did some fantastic stuff. And it was a lot of fun. And it was, sometimes you just have to go down and then you have to rise up again. And I wish I had the skills and tools to rise out of darkness faster. But I do know that the words we use, the things we say, can either bring people down or encourage them to greatness. And I think the Ted Lasso series, if you can get a chance to watch it, will teach you what it means to encourage people to be the best they can be. Thank you.